The diner had shrunk into shadows and quiet by the time he finally slid into the corner booth. The neon sign outside cast its familiar pink glow over the linoleum floor, the reflection of the letters stretching long and soft across the empty tables. She noticed him immediately, not because he stood out, but because the diner had been her world for hours, and any new presence in it felt like an intrusion and a relief at the same time. She approached cautiously, apron dusted with crumbs, rag in one hand. "Can I get you something?" she asked, her voice soft but steady, worn from hours of speaking to empty tables and half-empty booths. He shook his head slightly, a faint, tired smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "No, I just wanted to say thank you," he said, his voice low, almost hesitant, but filled with a sincerity that made her pause. "Thank you," she repeated, unsure whether he meant the coffee, the food, or her simply being there. "For this," he said, gesturing vaguely to the diner, the tables, the soft hum of the refrigerator. "For keeping this place open when no one else is. For being here when the world is asleep. And, for the little kindnesses you don't even realize you give. My kid, we come here sometimes. It's quiet. It's safe. You make that possible." She blinked, caught off guard. The exhaustion in her body, the monotony of the endless hours, and the routine she had grown so accustomed to, all of it seemed to lift slightly under the weight of his words. There was something in the way he said them, something raw and genuine, that made the diner feel warmer, even in the middle of the night. She smiled, small but real, and for a moment, the fluorescent lights, the stacks of dishes, and the sticky floors didn't matter. It was just the two of them, and the quiet understanding that her presence had mattered more than she'd realized. "You're welcome," she whispered, voice softer than she intended. Her hands, tired from wiping tables, felt lighter somehow. He nodded, a small, grateful tilt of his head, and for the first time all night, she allowed herself to breathe, to simply exist without the constant hum of chores or the weight of the day pressing down. Somewhere in the glow of neon lights and the hush of the empty diner, there was warmth. Simple, unspoken, but real. In that quiet corner, as the night stretched on and the city slept, two lives intersected in the most ordinary yet extraordinary way, and neither of them would ever forget it. By the time the clock edged closer to 11, the diner had become almost eerily quiet. The neon sign outside flickered softly, casting a pinkish glow across the empty booths and scuffed linoleum floors. She moved slowly, methodically, wiping down tables, stacking chairs, and polishing the counter that had seen hundreds of coffee rings and crumbs that would never fully vanish. Her hands were sore, her shoulders stiff, but there was a rhythm to the work, a strange comfort in the repetition that made the fatigue bearable. She paused for a moment, leaning against the counter to take a sip from a chipped ceramic mug of lukewarm coffee. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the streetlights. The quiet made her almost hyper-aware of every creak and hum in the diner, the soft whistle of the vent, the faint buzzing of the fluorescent lights overhead, even the distant rumble of a car passing down the empty avenue. It was the kind of quiet that made the world feel suspended, as if she and the diner were the only things holding up the night. Her thoughts drifted briefly to the people who had come through the doors earlier. The group of teenagers with their loud laughter, the exhausted mother trying to calm her crying baby. They all left behind traces, small stories that reminded her why she kept going, night after night. She wiped the counter again, pushing the rag down with more force than necessary, as if scrubbing could chase away her own lingering tiredness. The door opened again, but this time there was a hesitance to it, a quiet that made her stop mid-motion. She glanced up and saw a man standing there, shaking off the dampness from the drizzle outside. He looked ordinary in every way, coat slightly too large, hair damp, a small bag slung over his shoulder, but something in the set of his shoulders spoke of exhaustion, of responsibility, of nights spent awake not by choice, but by necessity. He didn't rush to the counter. Instead, he walked slowly to a booth in the corner, as if the act of sitting itself required effort. She watched him for a moment, curious, sensing that his story was heavy, that the night shift wouldn't just be another quiet blur for her this time. There was a subtle tension in the air, the kind that precedes something unexpected. As she wiped the final smudge from the last table before his, she realized that this encounter, brief, ordinary in appearance, might leave a mark far beyond the mundane hours she had grown used to. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a flicker of anticipation she hadn't known she was capable of feeling in the quiet of midnight. The diner had settled into its late evening rhythm. Most of the regulars had already left, leaving only the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft gurgle of the coffee machine to fill the air. She moved between the tables with practiced ease, wiping surfaces and stacking chairs that no one would need until the morning. Her movements were automatic, almost meditative, but the ache in her legs reminded her that hours of standing and bending didn't go unnoticed. She let out a soft sigh, glancing at the clock on the wall. Only 10 more minutes until the end of her break, then it would be back to the endless loop of orders, plates, and spilled ketchup. The door opened again, and a gust of cold night air swept inside, carrying the faint scent of rain and exhaust. She looked up, expecting another group of teenagers or a late-night wanderer. Instead, a young woman with a baby strapped to her chest shuffled in, her expression tired but determined. The baby let out a small wail, and the mother's hands shook as she tried to soothe it. Instinctively, she moved toward the pair, offering a warm smile. "Table for two?" she asked gently, though the mother's burden was clear. The woman nodded, and she led them to a booth in the corner, lowering herself to make eye contact. She took their order, careful to speak softly, and moved quickly to prepare a bottle while the mother tried to calm the baby. She watched the two for a moment, her heart tugging at the small scene. There was a vulnerability in them that she recognized, not her own exactly, but close enough to understand. As she set the food and bottle on the table, the mother's gratitude shone through a tired smile. "Thank you," she whispered, almost afraid to speak too loudly in the empty diner. The waitress nodded, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. Returning to the counter, she wiped her hands and stole a glance out the window. The streets were empty now, dim and quiet, the city slowing down while she remained in motion. It was in this moment, in the soft flicker of the neon lights against the wet pavement, that she felt both exhaustion and purpose collide. Every plate cleaned, every order served, every kind word exchanged, it all mattered, even if the world outside didn't notice. The clock ticked closer to midnight, and though she didn't know it yet, the next customer would change the quiet rhythm of her night, leaving an impression neither of them would forget. The diner's front doors jingled as she pushed them open, stepping into the warm, greasy scented air that always felt like home and prison at the same time. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, leaving only the soft glow of streetlights bouncing off puddles from the afternoon rain. She slipped into her apron, tying it tightly around her waist as if securing herself for the hours ahead. The smell of coffee, fried eggs, and cleaning solution filled her senses, comforting, familiar, and exhausting all at once. Tables Saturday in neat rows, many empty, their surfaces sticky from the day's earlier chaos. She ran her hands along them methodically, picking up stray napkins, adjusting salt shakers, wiping fingerprints from the chrome edges. Each movement was precise, practiced. She moved like a shadow of herself, efficient yet weary, her mind already counting the hours until her shift ended. Behind the counter, the coffee machine gurgled and hissed, a constant companion in the quiet stretches between customers. A group of teenagers burst in suddenly, their laughter loud enough to make her flinch. Orders shouted, trays clattering. She moved quickly, taking the drinks, jotting down requests, smoothing the tension that came with young energy. By the time they left, she was wiping down the tables again, her forearms sticky, her shoulders sore. She paused for a moment, staring out the window at the wet street. Most of the city had gone home hours ago. Most people were asleep, leaving her alone with the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant roar of traffic. A soft creak signaled another customer arriving, an older man in a coat that had seen better days. He gave a small nod, a polite smile, and took the booth by the window. She approached with a menu, her voice careful, warm. He looked tired, but not weary in the way she was. His eyes carried a quiet sort of relief, as if the diner itself were a sanctuary. She wondered, briefly, about his story, about the life that led him to this late-night booth. She forced a smile and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, ready to take his order. Little did she know, this quiet interaction, this simple act of service, was about to set the stage for something unexpected, something that would reach far beyond the ordinary rhythm of wiping tables and pouring coffee.